Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for this this webinar titled Maximizing Storage Efficiency, Data Protection and Transparency. And this is a triple bill webinar with Archiware, Backblaze and DataIntell. So hi from us three. This is David Fox from Archiware in the UK speaking. I must sit up straight because I've just remembered I'm on camera. Olivier is from DataIntell in Quebec, Canada.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Olivier. And Dave McKeen is from Backblaze. Welcome, Dave. Remind me whereabouts you are in the whereabouts.
I'm in Ottawa. I'm very close to Olivier. 2 hours away.
Yeah. Okay, not far, and I'm miles away. So yeah, we've got some good, interesting content for you. So just before we begin with that content, we're going to record. Well, we are recording this session. We'll put a YouTube recording of this session up probably tomorrow. So we'll send you an email, everybody that registered, with a link to that so you can share it with colleagues. We're really keen to take questions at the end of this webinar. We've allowed sort of 10 minutes of the webinar time to answer anything that occurs to you. So what we'd like you to do is to just type in the questions as they occur in the box within the GoToWebinar control panel that might look a bit like that if you're on a Mac. And then we'll go through all of those questions at the end. So with that, we're going to turn our cameras off right now and we'll turn them back on at the end so that you're not distracted by our beautiful faces. In this webinar, we're going to split it three ways. We're going to do an overview by Olivier of the DataIntell product, then an overview of the storage specifically of interest in this particular use case from David. Then I'm going to talk about Archiware P5 Archive, and then Olivier is going to show us all the three things working together and introduce you to the DataIntell product as well if you haven't seen that before. Then we'll wrap up. We'll go through those questions that you are going to type in, and then we should be about 40 minutes. So thanks for coming. So Olivier, over to you. Yeah, overview of DataIntell.
So yeah, I'll go through a quick overview. So from our experience in the last 10 years, we start to see a lot of infrastructure with multiple storages from best-of-breed vendors with data scattered in multiple locations, on-prem, in the cloud, and in archives. Every year, the amount of data generated by organization is growing, and usually 80% of this data is unstructured. If you manage 1 petabyte of data today, chances are that you will be managing 2 petabytes in 2 years. And from our observations with different customers, it's too complex for organizations to manage this data growth. They usually take the easiest way, which is always buy more storage instead of rethinking their internal workflows. Next slide, please.
There we go.
DataIntell increases efficiency of storage use. It reduces complexity and offers continuous analytics and stats of your storage and data. Our innovative feature is calculating how much a folder or a project is costing you monthly while providing you with option of reducing this expense. Next slide. Our mission is helping organizations better understand all these questions, which usually have no answers and have a great impact. In your day-to-day business, a simple action like retrieving the files you need could take forever. Does your organization wasting time and resources searching for files? Does it have an impact on profitability? And let's look at some other example that you might have. Where are recent projects? Does this project have data in the cloud? Do we have file in our archives for this project? Can we improve costs? Do we have a lot of duplicated files in the cloud that we are paying monthly? Do we keep cold data in our most expensive storage? What is our growth rate? Will we be able to ingest 2 new projects in the next month? Can we find space for these projects? So the application was designed to help not only IT users, but also data owners and managers. This is why all those questions could be answered by all those types of users. Next slide, please. The way DataIntell works is it's a web-based application and it's installed on-prem. The application is secure and passive. It won't delete, rename, or move file in your infrastructure. DataIntell will leverage other applications like Archiware P5 to do operations on file, like archiving or restoring files. To give you all this relevant information, DataIntell reads metadata from the file with our advanced crawling system. And to do analytics on storage, the application index information like file name, size, modified date, access date. For Cloud Bucket like Backblaze, DataIntell supports all S3 compatible storage with the REST API. And for Archiware P5, we can also index the archive index with the REST API. To give you,
so you can pull in an existing P5 archive installation.
Exactly.
And interrogate P5's archive database, and then include that in your analytics alongside all of the live storage.
Yeah, and we've seen customer with over 10 years of archive in Archiware being able to just have a single pane of glass of all that information, very easy with the integration of the two solutions together. And to give you trends and overview of your storage time, of your storage over time, the software scans at least once a day usually. And with all this information, you can get a single pane of glass for the complete landscape. So cloud, archives in Archiware, and on-prem storage. Next slide.
And it removes that entire using Windows Explorer or Finder, highlighting a folder, hitting Command I or right-click properties, and then waiting whilst the operating system traverses a load of storage, which can take forever. And once you've done it once, next time you do it, it takes forever the second time as well. So yeah, I can see a big convenience around having all that stuff sitting in a database all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's we have customers that use that just for a centralized search engine, because that's one of the pain points, being able to find files very easily. DataIntell, it's a subscription model or solution. It comes with supports and updates. There's no limitation on capacity of storage or number of users. We also offer a trial, and it comes with a quick training of the solution. Usually it takes an hour to install and configure the platform. And from there, you start getting relevant information in less than a day based on how long it will take to do the first scan.
Okay, and what sort of host do you normally install on, Olivier, when you're deploying?
It's we can install on a VM or a dedicated server. It's running on Linux.
Cool. I'll take you to the next slide.
Yeah, sorry. So DataIntell is helping organization do more with less. That's our objective. With all that knowledge, you can take rational storage decision, and planning ahead, like how much Backblaze storage we need for this next project, is very simple to get. The financial impact of managing all this data growth is greatly reduced with DataIntell as the single pane of glass for all your storage landscape. So cloud, archive, and on-prem storage. So yeah, so that's a quick overview of how the platform works.
Excellent. So and yeah, you'll be seeing a live demo of this in action in a few minutes. Okay, thanks, Olivier. So now with an overview of Backblaze, over to you, David.
All right, thank you, David. And again, thanks everyone for showing up to listen to our solutions. Backblaze, we're 15 years old. We're a public company as of 2021. We have over 500,000 customers, and we store a lot of data, in excess of 2.2 exabytes of data. For those who don't know that much about the storage world, what that really gets into is we have over 200,000 spinning drives protecting all of this data. There's many ways of how people can work with our storage. So David, if you could go to the next slide.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. So Backblaze is S3 compatible. You can connect to our storage via a web interface or an API. So we have our S3 compatible API, or through one of our many integrations. So in this case, we're going to be talking about how Archiware and DataIntell have connected into our storage. It is an archive and an application storage. So depending on your storage needs, it really just depends on what you wish to do, but your storage is always active. All right, it's always reliable and secure. We offer immutability, protecting data from threat or ransomware. Wow, that's a tough word for me. It's cost effective, and it's starting at about $5 a terabyte for our consumption storage. Next slide, David.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Here's just a small subset of customers who rely on Backblaze to drive their business. And you look at some of these names and you ask, well, why? And why they chose Backblaze? It's easy, and they can trust it. It's cost effective and affordable, and this enables them to control their business and their storage. Next slide. So we have two different types of offerings when it comes to our storage. We have consumption, which is pay as you go, and that's at $5 a terabyte. And then what we have is B2 Reserve. That's capacity-based storage. You're purchasing a block of storage in the cloud, and that starts at a 20 terabyte block. So when we talk about B2 Reserve, this is leaning more towards our channel partners, and it is specifically sold through the channel. It's value packed. It's a value packed SKU that includes the egress and transaction fees. We also have universal data migration, which I'll speak to in just a moment. And we offer premium support with a 4-hour email SLA on the B2 Reserve. Next slide. So universal data migration. So we will migrate any of your data from whether it's on tape, on-prem, any cloud, to Backblaze at no cost to you. We just want your storage on our network. As part of this, we will also pay for your Archiware P5 backup software when you procure a 200 terabyte block of storage as part of our B2 Reserve. Next slide. This just shows a quick illustration in terms of we will pick up, again, whether it's public cloud, your drive, your NAS, on tape. We control all the process. We have partners in place that will enable us to move that data. So typically it's a white glove service. There's very little that you would have to do on your side to move that data into our storage. Next slide. And that is Backblaze in a very, very quick overview of our solution and our organization. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That's quite an offer, moving data from whatever tape, whatever software may have written those tapes into the cloud. I think that's a pretty unique and interesting thing.
Well, yeah. And what's happened, David, is a lot of people, when they start their cloud journey, they might have selected a cloud and they don't know how to get off that cloud. They find it's too expensive. The egress will kill them. So that's where, as part of this program, we can, shift or lift and shift all that data, bring it into Backblaze, and that's at no cost to them.
Yeah, and then have entirely predictable monthly outgoings without needing to worry about how many API calls you're going to make or how many files you're going to need to download this week.
100%.
All these things all these things which can cause surprises. Cool. Okay,
100%.
so I'm just going to give you a little overview of Archiware P5 for those that may be attending that don't know anything about Archiware. So we are a software product made in Germany. We have 3 modules: the backup, archive, and a replication or synchronized tool. It's P5 Archive in the middle that we're focusing on in this webinar for integrating with DataIntell and Backblaze. So what is an archive? Just real briefly, because this is a bit of an educational task which we set ourselves. People understand what a backup is. Everybody has a backup because they need to make sure that their storage is secured in case they have some kind of a failure. Often people try to rely on the backup to be a long-term archive, but that's not really what a backup's intended for. So with Archiware P5, we have a deliberate media, entertainment, broadcast focused archive solution where instead of just backing everything up and then hoping that you've got an old copy of something that you deleted, we're deliberate about moving data into offline or cold storage, where you're identifying completed work that no longer needs to be online, but you need to keep it and you don't know how long you need to keep it for. And of course, DataIntell allows this selection to take place because it can identify stuff that you haven't looked at for a while. And unlike a backup, which normally needs to run every day, you run an archive as needed, maybe just once a month, just to tidy up and get stuff off of live storage that doesn't really need to be there. And media and broadcast companies, they all need a structured archive workflow. Too many of them that we chat to at trade shows do this. They buy cheap hard drives. They have piles of hard drives. They don't necessarily know where something is, but they know they put it somewhere. But the thing about hard drives is, as well as being chaotic, they're not designed to last for 20 years. So much better to use cloud storage or LTO storage to hang on to data for the long term, and that's where P5 comes in. So with P5, you can run P5 on a server of your choice. So this could be Windows, Linux, Mac. We have a lot of installations just running on Mac Mini, Mac Studios. And you can access through this server whatever storage that you've got in your infrastructure. And we basically offer two workflows for archiving, or some combination. So we can drive LTO tape hardware, whether that's libraries or standalone drives. Any generation of LTO we can work with, including LTFS, or we can use cloud vendors like Backblaze to push that data into cloud storage, whilst the same management interface presides over that data, whether it's on tape or in the cloud. In addition to this, for data which you have already archived, we have a new product that was introduced about 4 or 5 months ago, which allows you to take data which you previously archived, whether that's on tape or cloud, wherever it might be, and you can move it around. So you can say, yeah, I've got this stuff on tape. I want to put that into Backblaze B2 storage because I've got this big Backblaze capacity. Or you could take another cloud vendor and you could move that into Backblaze. So P5 Data Mover does what it says on the tin. It moves that archive data around so that you can respond to changing costs and insurance requirements upon you, and so on and so forth. So how does this all fit together? Let's have a slide with P5 DataIntell and Backblaze all together. So what we've got here is our storage infrastructure sitting under the DataIntell umbrella, where everything across all of these disparate direct attached NAS, storage area network, QNAP, Synology, whatever you might have, DataIntell puts an umbrella over all of that stuff, gives you this single pane of glass web interface, gives you analytics, and then with the P5 integration, whoops, didn't mean to do that. With the P5 integration sitting within DataIntell and a P5 archive server, you can then push stuff into your B2 cloud-based archive and restore stuff back. So you can switch between online and offline entirely within the DataIntell interface, and we'll see that in a couple of minutes' time. So the data mover would allow you to do stuff like migrate from other cloud vendor that you may have previously been archiving with and get that stuff into B2. So there's more than one way to do this transfer. If you've already been archiving data to tape or cloud with Archiware P5 Archive, then the data mover will help you in that kind of situation. And in addition to being able to see what's in your archive via DataIntell, I just wanted to show a screen grab of what Archiware P5's admin interface looks like. So what we're seeing here is files, a bunch of CCTV files in this case, which have been archived off to cloud, but they're all visible in this interface. They're visible as a list of files, as a breadcrumb trail, so you can browse around folders, as a grid of thumbnails, so you can see a frame from all of these AVI files. And then for a given file, you can play that back. We can generate a proxy, much like a media asset management interface does, capturing metadata, allowing all of that metadata and file names and modification dates to be searched. So we have a database sitting within P5 Archive that captures everything about every file that you placed into your offline storage and keeps that visible and searchable for you. But having said that, if you're using the DataIntell interface, then you can do a lot of this stuff without needing to go into P5's admin interface, other than to do the basic configuration. So let's take a look. So I'm just going to switch across the screen sharing role to Olivier, which I'm doing now, making you the presenter.
Perfect.
So in a sec, you'll see a different screen from the other side of the Atlantic. There we go.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, this is, I will show you, this is my infrastructure. So this is DataIntell. Like I said earlier, it's a web application, and this represents my data in my facility. So we have 4 different NASs. We have an Archiware P5 index in my system, which store is archived in a B2 bucket. And we also have one Backblaze digital workflow for people that are working remotely. So this is a bucket where we put data there and people can work remotely with that data. And the web application gives you an overview of all that in one place. So it splits in 4 different sections. Here we are currently on the dashboard, and I can tell you that in my system, the most active storage in the last month is my NAS X here. And if I scroll a bit on my dashboard, we can take a look at how full are my different on-prem storage, my different digital workflow bucket, and even my Archiware P5 index, which is again located in a B2 bucket, but we can also have some data in LTO tape if you have an LTO tape for your archive. Everything is clickable, so it's very easy to use. It's designed for non-technical people, but also technical people. So here we have 47 terabytes of cold data. So based on the access date, I can tell you that this data has not been touched in more than 6 months. And if I click on it, it will bring me to the search section with a filter predefined for me. It will give me a result in terms of list of files. It will also give you the result based on that filter for the folders. And it will also give me a visual representation of that search query. So I can tell you that all the files that were accessed 6 months ago, based on the creation date, we have 26 terabytes of data that were created in 2021. And most of those files are MP4 based on the extension. If I want to learn more about the MP4 that are last accessed 6 months ago, I can just click and it will add new filters for me. And just like that, I can drill down my result and it will update all my search result tabs here. So that's a quick way to start from very large sets of data and go granular based on different filters. Again, it's a centralized search engine, so you can search for on-prem storage, cloud, or archive, and you can apply just by keyword, or you can also look at different filters that we have here. That's an example of how we can quickly search for files. Another real-world example of how people are using DataIntell is with the P5 integration. So here we have all our physical silos that we have in my infrastructure. I can take a look at my archive silo. So this is my current folder structure in my Archiware P5 archive. And I can drill down and look at the different folders that we have in the archive. And let's say we need to restore some file because we're actually working on the project. I could just select that specific folder that is located in my archive and restore the selected file with P5. So if I do that, it will communicate with the REST API of our Archiware P5. You can specify where you want to restore that file on your on-prem storage. So I can put that here. And then it will send a job to Archiware P5 to restore that folder to this specific location on the on-prem storage. So very easy to have one place where you can quickly look at all your archive and restore files. And you can even select multiple folders and do the same kind of workflow for a restore function.
And if this is an archive where the files have gone to Backblaze B2 storage, then of course the everything is instantly available from B2. It's just a matter of your bandwidth and how quickly you can download however many gigabytes it is that you're restoring.
Exactly. Another use case we can look at is we have a B2 digital workflow where we have people working remotely with some files. So I can take a look at this B2 here, and we have one folder with different sound project that we're working on. Maybe we need to clean up some stuff or migrate some stuff. We already have insights about that specific B2 bucket, and we can take a look at the different project, how much data they're using with the easy to use folder navigation here. Let's say we have a project that we know we need to ingest 40 terabytes, and it will be moved to NAS here, the NASW. I can open that. It will again show me the file folder structure, but that's not where I want to look right now. It's mostly on the insights and how am I using currently this specific NAS. If we need that 40 terabytes, we need to move data to a new location. So I might think to start archiving files that have not been accessed in more than 6 months. So I will click on the insights. This will bring me to the search section again with all the files on the NAS that were last accessed 6 months ago. And from a search result, you can select all the files and archive that with P5 again, with the P5 integration. So here we have a list of all the archive plan we have. I'm taking the B2 archive plan, and it will archive 46 terabytes from the NASW to my B2 archive bucket with Archiware P5 plugin. So very easy to clean up and optimize storage space based on real actual fact and data based on something you're not using actually, because it's data that has not been touched in more than 6 months.
Yeah, I like the way that it warns you that there's more than 10 terabytes to upload, so it might take a while.
Yeah,
but even with that, if you have gigabit or upwards wide area network links, then you really don't have to wait that long to get data off of your on-prem storage into the cloud. It'll go pretty quickly.
And depending on how you define your archive plan, you could in Archiware P5 you could define an archive plan to delete files once they are archived. So it can for you delete all the data once they're migrated. So quickly you can look at of how the file are getting moved to a new location, and you would see that here in the timeline of that specific storage. It will go lower probably tomorrow once it's finished, or in the 2 days. Yeah. But you will see changing over time of the capacity use for that specific storage.
But if you didn't choose to have Archiware do the delete as part of the archive task, you could identify duplicates and then delete those off of the on-prem storage, right?
Exactly. DataIntell does not act on data. It's a passive solution, but you could export that as a CSV. You can tag those files. There's different way you can do that. We also have a REST API, but there's different way we can act on that data.
I appreciated it by having it as this is a analytics solution which will not touch your data.
Exactly.
It makes it much more comfortable for people to use without making any doing any damage.
Let's look at the last example that we can do with DataIntell. We have a concept called project. It's a way to group information. It could be a project. A lot of people are using it also to monitor department or teams. And I created a project called Alpha Project, which is used for the sound editing team. They have data in 3 different silos. They are using data for on the NAS here. They have data in the archive, and they are leveraging the B2 digital workflow. We allocate this team a 5 terabyte limit. It's non-blocking, but it's just a way to track how people are using data in the infrastructure and just keep data below that threshold. We can even set notification based on that threshold. And if we want to optimize usage of data for that specific project, we can look at duplicate or cold data. And again, if I click, it will bring me to the search section. But we can also look at different silos. So here we have the B2 digital workflow. And I can tell you we have a lot of duplicate data in that B2 digital workflow. So if we're near our limit capacity of our B2 reserve, we could optimize that by getting rid of the duplicate data on the B2 digital workflow. Again, because we're scanning every day, it will also give you a timeline of that project. So here we have a real timeline of what is the usage for that team that have data in 3 different locations in my infrastructure. So yeah, so that's a quick sample of how you can leverage your infrastructure data to take rational decision on your storage. Very easy to use. It's very friendly, and it brings a way to non-technical people to understand the weight of data in the infrastructure.
And Olivier, who would be some of those core people like are looking at these numbers? Like I could see a number of people in my world, but who would they be?
It depends on the use case. So for the search engine, we have a lot of people that are just data generators. So people that generates data and just want to retrieve files. So this is one of the use case. If you're more a director or you're managing the IT teams or you're managing the storage, you might use the project and file management section to monitor what's happening on your storage over time and where you should invest in the future, because potentially you will need more storage. That's for sure, because storage is just keep growing. But how do you take decision? It's based on that kind of data. So if I need to buy new B2 reserve storage, how much data do I need? With that kind of solution, you can very easily plan that kind of decision.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, and you were going to show a little bit of the P5 interface as well.
Exactly. So P5. Whoops, sorry. So P5 will look at the archive section and the restore section like you showed in the overview. So archive, from there, I'm going to let you talk because you're the expert, David. I don't know if you want to look at some specific stuff.
Sure. So what we're looking at here is Archiware's interface through which you configure your archive workflow and also drive it and are able to browse what's in the archive. Everything happens in this interface. So we have the concept of storage pools here. So you might have some tape storage configured. You might have some B2 storage configured. That's all existing in things that we call pools. So you can see how much storage of these different pools has been used. If you go over to the storage manager tab, Olivier, then in here you can see this is where we have our Backblaze B2 bucket configured, which is simply a case of plugging in the credentials that you'll get from your B2 account. If you I was going to say it doesn't show you the application key.
No, exactly. That's why I open it.
Your storage. Yeah, so you configure that in there, and then all you really have to do with regards to the B2 archive is to create an archive plan down there on the left-hand side, and we've got one there called Backblaze B2, and then there's a bunch of tabs within the archive plan. You really only need to configure the first tab with your target storage and using a default database or index to keep track of everything. But in here, you can also do stuff like under the options tab, choose whether you want Archiware to do deletes of the files that it's archived. We do verification via creating hashes of the files that are passing through P5. We'll generate checksums or hashes and then compare those on the way back out to the storage, so you can be sure that every bit is being written to the storage correctly. And then you can do preview generation, which was something I showed you in my screen grab a couple of minutes ago, whereby you can choose to use FFmpeg or ImageMagick to generate proxies or thumbnails or both of media files. So you can actually, much like the way that a media asset management system works, you can actually view those thumbnails and playback proxies within this interface. So yeah, as well. So basically, if you just want to push files and pull files, you can do all of that within DataIntell. But later on, if you're trying to find something in your archive and you'd like to see some thumbnails of media files before you can determine if you found what you're looking for, then you can do that stuff in this interface. So yeah, as a quick whirlwind. Oh yeah, you were going to show us some
yeah,
of those.
I have an example of the of exactly that specific workflow. So for example, yeah. Here I have a file with a preview, so it's a proxy version of my video. So that kind of information, we do not provide that in DataIntell. So if you want to be sure that it's the right file you need, you can look at the preview with the
And DataIntell and this interface are all working against the same database or index archive index that we call it. So you'll see the same stuff both ways, but you can just get a bit more insight to looking at thumbnails and so on directly within Archiware's interface.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. Thanks for the demo. What I'll do now is I will just send the screen sharing back to me so that I can put up the final slides. So I think you should be able to see me again, or maybe not. There we go. It took a while to switch over. I think you can see me again now. Yeah, cool. So that's the live demo. So now we'll go to your questions. So if you've got a question in your head, but you didn't type it in yet, now's your chance. Let's go through some of the questions that I can see. One from Alexander. He asks, does the file crawler impact the storage performance while scanning? And oh yeah, we were going to switch our cameras back on so you can see me as well as the slide. So yeah, let me reread that. Does the file crawler impact the storage performance while scanning? That's a question for you really, Olivier. I guess it must do, but then you can choose what time of day it's going to do it, can't you?
Yeah, you can. It does not affect that much because we're only reading metadata of the file and not the actual content. But you can define when you want to scan the infrastructure. So this is all something that can be configured in the platform. But we have customers that scanning during daytime where they have a lot of people working on storage, and it does not affect their workflows. But if you want to be sure, you can define that during the night, and that's fine.
Okay, and I guess if you're just doing it once within a 24-hour period, then it's not.
Yeah.
It's I guess if you were making some major changes and removing stuff from storage and so on, and you needed to update, then you might do a rescan during working hours. But like you say, we're not reading the actual files like you would if you were using nearline editor or something. We're just looking at the stats about the files, which is much quicker. Okay, so thanks for that question, Alexander. Question from Jeremy. Is there a way to limit access to specific NAS or cloud storage? This is, I assume, within DataIntell. Limit access to specific NAS or cloud storage. So I guess this is like, can you hide stuff from DataIntell so that it doesn't get shown?
Yes, we have a group system where you can limit what people can see in terms of storage units. So you can we have customers with different locations, and they have one centralized database for all the data. So the IT teams is looking at all the data, but the end user who are searching for file usually only see data for their facility and not the other facility. So that can be done under the user management section of the platform.
Okay, cool. There's a few questions popping up as I'm reading it. So question from Sajid. Would P5 archive support my quantum library? Can I switch to LTFS tapes? You didn't say which quantum library, but yeah, we've got loads of customers using quantum tape libraries, also libraries from, Spectralogic, HP, all of the other vendors that I can't remember the names of. But yeah, we support all tape libraries from all vendors of all sizes with any number of LTO drives. So our tape support is completely, across the board. There's nothing that we won't support, not that we've come across so far anyway. And the other part of the question, can I switch to LTFS? Yeah, you can. So since about 18 months to 2 years ago, Archiware P5 Archive supports LTFS. If you don't know what LTFS is, it's a vendor neutral way of writing data to an LTO tape so that tape is readable by any other number of pieces of software that also support LTFS. So it means that you could send a tape to somebody and they could recover the data from the tape if you were having a tape workflow. Also means that if you're putting tapes in a safe somewhere and coming back 20 years later, software that will read LTFS tapes will always be around. So it doesn't lock you into any particular proprietary system. So that's that question. Question from Dominic. What is the P5 version supported by DataIntell? I don't actually know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's version 7. It's version 7.
Okay, so all versions of version 7. We're on 7.1.4 at the moment. I may have got that wrong. I can't check. But yeah, 7.0 and 7.1 have been out for quite a while. Last question I can see here is from Paul. Is it possible to scan multiple P5 archive indexes in DataIntell? So
yeah, and that's a good question. And we can even scan multiple indexes, but we can also scan multiple instances of Archiware. So if you have multiple Archiware instance in 2 different facilities, we can scan those. Because we have some customers that have multiple Archiware P5 instance in different facilities, so we can centralize all that information in one place.
Okay. So you basically have the ability to add multiple different P5 servers by providing their IP address and credentials into DataIntell, and it'll look across all of them. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So I don't see any other questions appearing, and we've just hit the 40 minutes that we promised. I'm just going to start talking to me. So yeah, I think we're good there. If anybody's got any final questions, then please do type them in. But apart from that, let me just come out of full screen so I can see everybody else's faces on my screen. Otherwise, I'm just staring at grey slides. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us in that case. Thanks, David. Thanks, Olivier, for all the interesting content. Final slides that I'm going to put up here with some contact details. So dataintell.io is where you need to go to find out more about DataIntell, including free trial. Like Olivier said, they're happy to do like a proof of concept, do a bit of training, leave it running for you so that you can experience all of the analytics that you never, discovering things on an hourly basis that you never knew. So yeah, go to dataintell.io to learn more. Please email channelsales@backblaze.com if you're interested in any of the products that we just discussed, and they'll be happy to engage with you and maybe provide you with somebody that can provide all of this stuff as a solution, which is obviously what most people are going to be wanting from an end user perspective, is deal with one reseller, get everything working. And same thing with Archiware. You can grab the software at archiware.com, but you can also access the reseller network globally and find a partner, and those partners should all pretty much all be well versed with the B2 storage and DataIntell, so they can put that solution together for you. So with that, I think it's time to say goodbye. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. Thanks, David and Olivier. There's another session of this webinar in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in 4 hours and a little bit. So if you know anybody that'd like to see the same thing, we'll put a recording of this up on YouTube, and I think that's enough from me. So yeah, goodbye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your time, David and Dave.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.